This is the Platinum Podcast.
Ole, welcome to the Platinum Podcast.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moore. Or should I say Roger?
Oh, this is a very nice, polite introduction that I'm getting from you. I appreciate it. I'm excited about this one. This one's good. We get to talk about conspiracies. This is great for me. So I dug into conspiracies, loosely speaking, years and years ago. Got really into it, went down all these different rabbit holes, as I'm sure many, many people have. Lots of different directions to go into. And I just got to a point, I was like, I don't even know where I'm going with this anymore. And I kind of put it to the side and, got on with life. Did some normal life stuff, businesses, socializing, all those kind of things. But it's something that's always there on the periphery, and especially with what's going on now with COVID, what's going on in the world. More and more is cropping up regularly. And I see more and more things that are of interest, and in the interest of saving time and not going down every single rabbit hole that faces me, this is perfect because I get to speak to someone who's been involved and around this area for years, longer than I've been alive, essentially, at this point, right?
There you go.
So I'd love for you to start off by introducing yourself and give people a little bit about your background.
Okay, so my name is Ole Dammegård, and my body was born in Denmark. I grew up in a family of 5 with a very dominant militant dad that was in the Danish resistance movement during the Second World War. And my whole family in Denmark were involved in the resistance movement. So I grew up with all of these stories from the war. I grew up with stories about how important it is to stand up for what is true and right, even if you're the minority of one, even if it's like David and Goliath, that type of scenario. And so very dominant dad, like I said, we had like a dictatorship at home, but it was a democracy as long as we did what he said. He was the ruler. And so when I came to this world, I think I was quite an innocent, pure individual. And from day one, more or less, when I started to be able to speak, when people asked me, what are you going to be when you grow up? I said, a stuntman or save the world. And somehow now these many years later down the line, it feels somehow in a weird, bizarre way that I combine the two, or at least I'm trying to.
Is that why you did a backflip when you walked through the door?
Something like that. Yeah. So, anyway, we moved overnight when I was 8 years old in the mid-60s. We moved overnight with no warning, boom, to Sweden. And it's only very recently, since I've started to understand what actually happened, and that my family has been living a double life my whole life. And so I grew up in the middle of the forest in Sweden, in the middle of absolute nowhere. And it was in Sweden where when I started working after high school and so on, that one of my first jobs was as a journalist. And as a journalist, I started learning to be quiet and listen instead of talking, and also to hear what people were saying and what people were not saying. Because depending on who you're talking to, some people are transparent. They say the truth. You can see it. You can feel it. The body language, But of course, whatever they say, you need to double, triple check. But other ones, especially when they get into some kind of position of power, be it locally, nationally, or internationally, very often they will be trained themselves or be trained in how to hide the truth. Serve it in a really polite and beautiful way, very glossy and shiny. But what is not being said, you're given press releases that they have put together. It's all super nice. But it's like when you start asking them questions, you have to start seeing what are they avoiding to answer, if any. Because, sometimes they're not hiding anything, but other times there's something weird going on.
Politicians actually make a whole career out of avoiding questions, don't they?
Exactly. That is, when you get into politics, that's why I've never, ever been interested in politics, because once I started seeing what was going on and how these politicians are saying everything you want to hear before the election, and then they're doing everything that they're being paid behind the scenes to do after the election that has nothing to do with you except robbing you. So a friend of mine was asked, Max Egan from Australia, he was asked, do you vote? And he said, no, I do not. My God, where did my brain go? I do not support organized crime. That is what he said. And this is, after all of these years, I very much am in the same understanding of what's going on when it comes to the political scene. But anyway, that has nothing to do with your question. My question then, or my life, I got into many different areas. I was quite adventurous. I walked around Iceland in the middle of the winter on my own. I took a bicycle on my own through the whole of Europe. I was going to South Africa and ended up in the war between Iran and Iraq instead, in the middle of the war.
Was this while you were a journalist?
I quit my job as a journalist after 5-6 years because I felt everything that has happened or can happen in this city I've covered, and it's sort of like I wanted to find there needs to be more to life than this. So I got this idea from nowhere that I was going to go to South Africa, from Sweden to South Africa on a bicycle.
As you do. And this was way before mountain bikes and so on. So this was like with 2 gears, and I don't even like bicycling. So I don't know. I think I would have been better off with a psychiatrist, but I did it. And somewhere down in Europe, I took a left instead of a right somewhere, and I ended up in Iran instead of South Africa. And in that situation, it was a very, very, it was a country that I was very scared of because I knew nothing of it at the time. This was in 1984. And I thought it was a country filled with mad people running around screaming Allah Akbar, shooting each other. And when you get in there, which I did after a lot of resistance, it was really, really hard to get in because they had locked the borders and they didn't want any foreigners in or Iranians out at that time. But there was something inside of me, in my heart, that said, go, go, go. So I kept going to the consulate. Applying. And they said, go away. How thick can you be? We have said no, move on. And for some reason, I just kept going. And one day, boom, I got the stamp in my passport. And then it went into becoming a life-changing experience for me because I came into this situation in Iran suddenly seeing that, oh my God, the more I learned, I studied there for quite a while, how this is just ordinary people, but the situation is absolute madness, like going back to the Middle Ages and with military controls and surveillance everywhere. I mean, a lot like the Western world is going into. What year was this?
84.
In 84, okay.
Yeah, and so it ended up with me falling in love with some of these people, and also one of them got murdered, unfortunately, because he was standing up for what was right, and just human rights. You know, it's nothing you have to like be a violent. Yeah, I'm gonna be like a resistance fighter, a guerrilla fighter. Absolutely not. It's just standing up for like, this is not right. You know, you can't do that. Boom, dead.
And what was the situation there? So this was like a form of government oppression that was going on?
It was after the revolution. Right. The Shah had been kicked out in 79, 80. They had made an incredible revolution in Iran, throwing out this military dictatorship that was led by the Shah, which in the West was portrayed as something very beautiful. And, you know, he was in every single women's magazine, you know, the Shah of Iran. And, there was like that. But what was actually happening in Iran, through BP, British Petroleum, and other, also the CIA was big in Iran because of the amount of oil and minerals in that country and the strategic position when it came to controlling the Persian Gulf, which is an incredibly important one to control when it comes to oil in and out and controlling the world. So Iran has been a victim for the riches that are in that country. And so
just so I get some clarity, so you're in Iran, you're witnessing this type of oppression, and you're also seeing how this is portrayed in the West versus what the actual reality is in this country.
I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. And it was at a time when the West knew nothing. We just knew the official version of Iran. You know, so when and it was so when you were in the streets, there was this fear, you know, everybody was fearful. And then when you got into the houses, their homes, and they took off the chador, ripped it up, put on Bad with Michael Jackson, and just started. It was just like, it was mind-blowing, the change, you know. And it was that experience, the closer I got to them, and oh my God, the only difference is my hair color. What, you know, when you, it's like I am them and they are me. But they are in a situation that is horrific. Because what happened after the revolution was that the Khomeini, the Ayatollahs, came in and took over with a very brutal psyop, and took over the whole country and put it into a dictatorship, a religious dictatorship that no one could have predicted before. And
so before we move on to that, explain, so you're in this situation now, where did this then lead you? What was the thing that kind of, you realised that these people are the same as us, the West are lying about essentially what's going on in this country. You're seeing two sides of the coin. What was the impact this had on you?
It had a massive impact on me, because it was like I had all of these emotional walls built up inside of me from my life growing up that I couldn't, and I'm now starting to understand what the things what created them, which I was not aware of before. And Sweden was too soft for me to get through these walls. But then Iran, when you get it this close to your face, in your face, and you start seeing, how little a life is worth, what is freedom really all about, It's not just you can say fuck you to someone. It's like freedom, what it means when you're not allowed to have it. I mean, they couldn't do anything. They were not allowed to walk next to a girl they weren't married to in the street. Some days they couldn't whistle. Some days they couldn't chew a chewing gum. Some days they couldn't shave. The music was banned. It was like just locked in everywhere, and this control and fear mechanism everywhere. So it ended up with me helping to smuggle out one of these guys, which was more or less impossible at the time. They were everything was shut down, but we managed to get him out through former Russia. I was with him, and then through East Germany, which was in the Eastern Bloc at the time, and then up through to Sweden, where he was first deported, but we managed to stop that. And then he was, after a lot of struggle with the authorities, he was given asylum there, and he's now a really good heart surgeon in Sweden. So he's really doing what he can to pay back.
So who is this guy that you smuggled out?
He was just an ordinary Iranian guy, but he was a guy that I met on the bus going from Istanbul to Tehran, and but he became my best friend. And then after that, I was only allowed 48 hours transit visa, but we lied and we fiddled around with papers and we did all kinds of weird stuff for me to be able to stay longer. And the longer I stayed, the more I fell in love with these people, and they started seeing, oh my God, I was the first Westerner that this guy met, and spoke to, and they saw that, my God, he really cares, because they had an impression of Westerners that they're just too much up their own butt, they only care about themselves, this whole thing. But they said, here's somebody who really seems to care. So they took me everywhere, showing this is what's going on. If you really want to know, there's underground jails there, prisons there's this. If you look at that guy over there with a basket and an antenna coming up, the control system, all of it. So all of this has resulted in me writing a book called Shadow of Tears, where I go through the whole thing. But I just want to go back to that. In the end, we managed to get 7 more out to Sweden and to Canada. So I was very much involved in human not trafficking, but smuggling there for a while.
Choose your words carefully here.
No,
we'll get onto Jeffrey Epstein a little bit later.
It's trafficking is one thing, but it's in my world, and yes, put me in trouble if you want. But it's like, in my world, what I've seen over the years is that a lot of laws are created to control people, and the real laws that should rule is the law of the heart. So these are the ones that I follow. Do no harm, don't steal, don't kill, stand up for what is right and true and pure. And if you put a law there that is an oppressive law, I will totally break it. That's the way it is. I will break it if it needed for the sake of life and freedom.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, laws, they're not the be all and end all. They're put into place by human beings at the end of the day.
Yeah, and so many of them. There are like thousands of new laws being created on a monthly basis in the world. It's just boom, 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 boom. In the old days, you had 10 on a stone plate, boom, don't do these things and you'll be fine. But now it's like you will break them even without knowing it. And what is that? It's a matter of control. They're trying to control us.
Well, I've never been one to follow all the rules myself, so
Is
we're
that really true, Mr. Moore?
It's very, very true. I can assure you of that. This is interesting because it sets a really nice foundation for what you're doing now, because it gives context. You've seen all these different sides of the world. You've seen how prominent oppression is in a country where it's not as well hidden, perhaps to say. In Iran at that time, it wasn't that well hidden. It was clearly a fascist dictatorship. Very different scenario. So now what I'm hearing is that allows you to connect the dots about how these systems work and how this is then brought forward in what we're experiencing now.
It started waking me up to, because I was super naive when I grew up. I felt Sweden is a perfect democracy. It's wonderful this, and you can trust the government. The police is there to help you across the street. That was my impression. And as long as I was honest and loyal and paid my taxes and followed the dotted line, life is great. And then I started getting into this area where it was like, so what? Weird things was going down. And I was starting to, I discovered that a few times as a journalist, that I was secretly or invisibly being stopped by something that I couldn't see. It was only once an article was just stopped without, it wasn't the editor, it just came from somewhere and it was pulled out. And I started feeling, what the hell was that? And then I started getting a nose for things when they smell strange. And this is also, I think, when I'm going to come back to maybe about my family living a double life, because it now turns out that my father was secretly working as a NATO asset my whole life without me having any idea, possibly my mother as well. And it's now,
just define a NATO asset.
A NATO, it is an agent for NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO was created after the Second World War as a defense organism for all of these small countries like Denmark, Belgium, all of these small ones, England, together with the US during the Cold War, to gather together, hold each other's hand should there be an invasion from the east.
And an asset essentially means somebody that works for them.
Sorry?
An asset in this case is someone that works for NATO, yeah?
But that's a secret asset.
Okay.
A secret asset. And my father was recruited, I'm finding out now, at the end of the Second World War as part of the Danish resistance movement, as were many, many, many thousands of people in Denmark, Norway, other countries as well, into a secret, like a spy, a ghost army that went under the name of Gladio. But these are big, big things. So I'm just saying that I believe that because I, without knowing it, grew up in a family that were living a double life, I got a sniffer for things that is bizarre or strange or not right. That when something is said and it's not matching up, that there's like alarm bells going off, or that, when people are lying, you can smell it, or these type of things. I think that from an early childhood, without knowing it, I went through boot camp, which has put me in the situation I am, or prepared me for the situation I am in now. So when you look at the over, if you look at it from a higher point of view, it's almost like I've been trained from an early age into getting a good education into the understanding of what I'm now dealing with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. With that kind of background, you're going to start digging into things and start not taking things at face value. Why would you?
And I wasn't even aware of why because I started getting this interest. It was in 1980. I know the exact date when the first time I saw the so-called Zapruder film, where that is the footage of where you can see the JFK motorcade coming down the road in Dallas, in Dealey Plaza, and where the assassination takes place, where he's shot from multiple different angles, and you will see that the last headshot where his whole head explodes. That was the first time when I saw that, and it's very obvious if you just use what I call Farmer Brown logic. 1 + 1 = 2, which is more or less always the case in the world. When you come into the world of conspiracies, it's more normal with 1 + 1 = 34. If we can persuade it and push it on you through lies and covers and whatever. But it's very obvious that when you see the way his Kennedy's head, when he's being hit, that his head is being thrown backwards and to the left, meaning just normal physics, the shooter must have been standing in front of the car and to the right somewhere. But the official story said the exact opposite. So it takes, like when many of these big conspiracies, it doesn't take many minutes to see something is very strange and wrong here. But to find the real truth can take you decades. That's a different one. But that was the one that really started waking me up to, like, this is very strange. Why is this version, this official version of what happened in Dallas that day, being supported by big mainstream documentary makers and journalists and stuff, when it's so obvious that something is not correct here? You know, so that, to start with, that took me down this road of, I'm confused here. I don't understand. So I started digging into, this was way before the internet, way before the JFK movie, where at a point where nobody was really interested in this at all. So I went to the US, I went to England, I went to archives, I went to libraries, I went to just trying to, because I got so fascinated with the JFK case, because it's so multi-layered and so complex that after all of these years, we're still confused, I tell you. Absolute masterpiece when it comes to assassinations. But then going down that road, also after a few years, got me into the assassination of Martin Luther King, of Robert Kennedy, Malcolm X, also back to Abraham Lincoln, and indirectly all the way back to the old Roman Empire, where I would say that many of the methods that are being used on the population today are just updated versions of what the old Romans did. It's fascinating how the old Romans came up with these templates that are still, they're not very many, but they're being used to control us in such a massive way, and many of us are not aware of it.
Can you give me an overview of what that template is? Like,
yeah,
in a real short.
For sure one. I would say there's like 4 I'll start with the easy ones. In all operations, or all both black operation, military operations, psychological operations, and political operations, they're very often what is called a diversion. Boom, something goes off to the left. Everybody looks to the left, but the real action is going on to the right. It's diversion. It's for a magician. That is one of them. Boom, something goes. Meaning nowadays, when something says boom in media or an explosion or whatever, everybody's looking that way. I'm looking to the right. I'm looking the opposite way. Divide and conquer is another one of these ones, where if you want to avoid the population to see that you are actually doing it to them, what you go in and then you start putting whatever a nation you're talking about, you find whatever conflict is going on, the different minorities, groups, whatever is going on in that country, and then you just go in and you put fuel on that conflict. So they will start pointing at each other, not looking at you. Divide and conquer. United we stand, divided we fall. So you go in, and through psychological operation, mind fuckery, you make them think that they're the problems, or it's their neighbors that is the problem. Divide and conquer. Then you have another one, which is, this is the big one: problem, reaction, solution. That one they love. Because through all ages, and if we go back to the Romans, there's always been a small little group of people who thought that we are so much better than the rest of you. We would like to be your goddess, your god and whatever, and we want you to kiss our feet and thank you so much for turning us into slaves and turning you into slaves and to go to unjust wars, whatever. How can you do that? How can the few control the many, the masses? And the only way they can do that is through fear. They need fear. Without fear, they're powerless. So if there isn't anything to fear, they need to create an outer enemy, something that would scare the living bejesus out of people. And so how can you get people fearful? And this is where problem, reaction,
all I'm hearing is COVID, lockdown, vaccine right now.
Yeah. You are. Yeah, but this is exactly it. This is exactly, COVID is a super example of this whole thing, but there's so many of it, and it's being carried out in so many different areas. So this is how it works. The few in power secretly create a problem, and now in modern day times, these are like normally 4 different types of problems. Financial crash, you got an alleged mass shooting, an alleged terror attack, or a virus. They love the viruses. They love the viruses. The reason when they do that, boom, something goes up over here. What they want is an emotional reaction from the population, a reaction where people don't think, but just go into, oh my God, that's awful, we need protection. And so we turn towards the people we think are there to protect us, not understanding that it's actually them who have created the problem, saying, please help us. And they, who created the problem, will say, well, the only way in this very, very difficult situation with that horrible problem is, and boom, in comes the solution. And the solution was there from day one. The solution is something we would never, ever have accepted had it not been for the problem reaction solution. They are the ones setting it up. So whenever a solution is being presented to you, you have to look, where did the problem come from? And would we have accepted it? Because the solution is every single time the same. It's indirectly problem, reaction, fascism. Problem, reaction, more and more militarized robocops in the street, more and more surveillance, more and more your freedoms out the window, more and more unjust wars being financed, but with your tax money, you don't even have a say. You're being turned into a slave for your own tax money, all for your protection. Do you know the word government, what it actually means? It's Latin, and it means governmente, control the mind. Mind control. That is the actual meaning of the word government. In German and the Scandinavian languages, Regierung, it means rulers. That is not what we're being told. We're being told, you work for us, dear Mr. President. I don't think so.
It's meant to be an administration service, right?
It is it's the staged whole scenario. So these are the things that are good to become aware of.
That's really interesting. It gives some real nice context, to very up-to-date context as well. So what was the fourth method?
Which ones did we go through?
So divide and conquer,
diversion, problem reaction, solution. I instead of the fourth one, let me go into a little more about the problem reaction solution, because what they need to, this is normal marketing. You talk to any marketing expert, they will say problem reaction solution. If that is, if we need to sell a shampoo, how are we going to do it? We need to create a problem.
Of course I do.
Are you having dandruff?
People buy feelings.
Have you not noticed? Have you scratched your head lately? Maybe it was white. Problem, to get you, oh my God, could this be deadly? Dandruff have shown to show horrible things. Oh my God. Or you go emotional, like with fiddles in the background and sunsets and grandfather's out with a border collie, in the sunset with the grandchildren. You go sentimental, emotional. And then when people open up, boom, you hit it in. No. Problem reaction solution. It's an ordinary marketing.
People buy products, people buy feelings, not products and services, right?
There you go. Nothing new under the sun. And this is why they need to go, that you get emotional. So this is why when there's an alleged mass shooting, mass shootings, it's always beautiful teenagers. Or if there's a terror attack, it's more or less always women and children. These are the ones where you get an effect. Or there's a building being attacked that has an emotional national value for that nation, or globally, a tourist attraction, something like that. So emotional. So I would very strongly suggest the next time when something happens, boom, over here, and you go, oh my God, before you do that, just take a breather, go for a little walk, hug a cat, play around with a cat, hug a cup if that helps.
Solid advice. Yeah. Cuddle those cats.
Yeah. Anyway, put on some music, take a breather, a coffee, then come back, look again. Because that is not what they want you to. It's like they want to slap you in the face with it and you just react right away so that you will accept the solution.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's being presented super fast because people's concentration span is so short. In the old days, they could have spent hours and hours. Now they're afraid that you would even change channels. So it would go on in the media very often when something alleged has happened, the people interviewed will be part of the operation and the reporter will be part of the operations. That's why you will see the same reporters over and over again in many of these attacks, alleged attacks. And so it would be, oh my God, what happened? The victim or the witness would say, oh, it's so horrible. I saw heads rolling, women and children were blown to pieces. Horrible, horrible, horrible. We sit in the sofa. Oh my God, Edna, did you hear that? Something needs to be done. And then the reporter, it's come to that now, that the reporter needs to deliver the solution to you before you change channels or go and eat a slice of pizza or whatever, you know. So it's super interesting. For instance, when the mass shooting took place in Norway, there was a lot of teenagers that are said to have been murdered out on an island. And then the head of the secret police in Norway was interviewed. And she said, well, this would never have happened had they been microchipped. What the hell did microchip have anything to do with that? But that was part of when people were totally open emotionally, part of boom, kicking in the agenda. You know, when Charlie Hebdo happened, which had nothing to do, it was a mass shooting inside of Paris, had nothing to do with airports, had nothing to do with airplanes or flight. And then the reporter said, well, this just means that we have to heighten security at all airports. Do you see, it's on a subconscious level. Also, they pump it in many different levels while we are totally open emotionally.
Okay. So we've obviously referenced they, and we reference an agenda. This is something that interests me. So I've always, and we've had this discussion before, I'm always on the fence with this. I'm always like, part of me thinks, okay, yeah, it's very possible that there's somebody that's orchestrating everything. And another part of me just goes, I think it's like human nature. You've got wealthy people that do each other favors, that do stupid things. They go and fuck hookers and they do a bunch of shit they don't really want other people to find out about, and they call in favors. And part of me just says it's just like this big pile of dirty favors over and over again. And that to me is very real. I've dealt with powerful people and I know what they get up to and I know how many strings they can pull. What I really want to understand is when it transitions from just being that to being something a lot more organized that has an agenda. Can you tell me a little bit more about your perspective on who they are and what that agenda is? I hope you guys are enjoying this episode of the Platinum Podcast, brought to you by Platinum University, the real life school of mindset, online business and financial independence. Platinum University teaches you everything conventional education didn't. We're helping thousands of people create multiple passive income streams that create more money, time, and freedom. We literally guide you through every step of the process with the help of our in-house experts and our powerful, like-minded community groups. To get 35% off your monthly subscription and permanently lock in the discounted price of $39.99 and also get access to all of our mindset, Forex, dropshipping, stocks, crypto, network marketing, and Airbnb content, visit the link in the description to join.
It's a super good question and not so easy to answer. It's easy to throw things out there and say, yeah, it's this, it's this, it's this. But when you look at the power structure that has built up over the years, and I had no idea when I started out here that these things were so connected as they are, in my opinion now. This is only after all of these years that I'm now at this opinion. So this did not come easy to me. But it is constructed so that you will not be able to see it clearly what is actually going on. It's a pyramid structure within a pyramid, within a pyramids, within pyramids, within pyramids, and all of them are totally compartmentalized, meaning that there's only a very few, whatever they are, individuals or whatever, at the so-called top that will see the bigger picture, that will know the mainstream. Most of the people involved in this whole machine only think that they're doing many things that they're doing a good thing. You know, they believe in what they're doing. Not a lot of people are evil, you know, most people are good, but they're being sometimes guided by greed, sometimes they're being pressured, sometimes they're being controlled, but they don't know from what level. So it's just like walking into a bank. If you say hello to the one behind the bench, hello, Mrs. Jones, la 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 la. Okay, she is not evil. Her boss is not evil. the main the chief coordinator, blah blah blah, in that region is not evil. His boss is not evil. This is not evil. The owner of the bank is not evil. But when you get up, the further up you get, the higher it is to see what is actually going on. And it's almost like driving a bus, or many are on a bus, but we don't know the driver. We just follow. And so then we end up in where we think, this is going really strange, isn't it? But we're all doing the right thing. So to answer your question, is like, I would suggest that there is a pyramid power structure that has been very very consciously designed and constructed for the last 300-400 years, and it's entangled with Freemasonic networks, brotherhoods, but it's also multinational companies and many different structures that has been intertangled into a wave of deceive and deception, and super difficult to see, because also it's smoke and mirrors. Like, you get in through one door, it's covered with smoke, you can't manage to get in. The next one, okay, you can open that. So this is not an easy one. But after a while, and what has now been exposed to a big on a big level, is that on different levels there are certain plateaus of power structures. And I have what I'm focusing on mainly is tracking down assassins and exposing state-sponsored terrorism and trying to stop it. But that's on a street level. Then they don't know where the order came from. It's once again totally compartmentalized. So you come up to a level where governments are, but then you find out that these government people are handpicked, and they belong to other groups that are above them, like the Bilderberg Group, like the Council on Foreign Relations, like the Trilateral Commission, like Club and Bones, the Club of Rome, these type of, the Committee of 300. Many people haven't even heard of it, but there's loads now that is being used. But that's on this level. And this is the level where I know for sure that they are involved, but I certainly know also that there's a hell of a lot going on above them where I have no clue. And then there's a lot of, it's the Jesuits, it's the Zionists, it's reptilians, it's aliens, Illuminati. It's like, I have no idea. But what I do know is that the higher up you come, what most people are not aware of, that this pyramid is actually upside down. So it's actually the lower down you come, because you're getting into darker and darker and darker and darker stuff. And when I'd
like to stop you there, because what I'm hearing, because this is really interesting to me. So it's less about, at least on the lower levels, it's less about the individuals themselves, because they're all part of a game they're not really aware of. First and foremost,
totally,
it's more about the structure that's being created, because the structure is by its very nature toxic. That's more the issue, right? Rather than the individuals. They chop and change, from what I'm hearing, at least on a certain level, right? So then the other thing that strikes me is that then it becomes down to these individuals and who they are at their very core. Because if you are the type of person that wants to create a structure which is intrinsically bad and it is going to have a detrimental effect on people, there's something wrong with you. Like, you're a sociopath, right? There's something really fucked up about you. So these are the two things that really interest me. The nature of the individuals that have to be at the top of this, to not give a fuck about anybody below, and the structure, which you very well explained. So can you explain a little bit about who these types of people are?
I think many of them are born psychopaths, which means that you can't blame them. They don't have compassion. They don't have emotions in the same way we have. They don't understand that they're causing pain. It doesn't resonate with them.
I don't give a fuck.
It's not something bad. They just don't have it. It's bad for us. But our problem is that we don't know who they are. That's the problem, because many of them become very, very good at manipulating things and simulating emotions and doing whatever to manipulate you. In certain areas, psychopaths are super good. In war zones, send them forward. They're fearless. They don't know what, send them, boom, boom. They can do incredible stuff. Assassins in war times, and go in behind enemy lines, fantastic. But in a peacetime, not good. So I think quite a few of them are psychopaths. Some of them extreme psychopath, if you can be even more extreme than a psychopath. Then you've got sociopaths, which are people with the same behavior but were born so-called normal and then were destroyed either by their parents or circumstances or traumas or whatever. And many of these families, when you get up in this power pyramid or down, are within families. And these families have for generations worked very hard to destroy their children so that they can take over the empire, because you cannot be a softie and control these dark empires. You have to be ruthless. And that is a good thing in their world. It's a bad thing in our world. It's yin yang, black and white, you know. So who are they? They're at the top. I don't know. I make it easy for myself, but because I need to just understand what I'm up against, and I just say pure evil. When you come to the absolute top of the pyramid or the exact bottom of it, it's just pure evil. And then we see that as something bad. They see it as something good. They even worship the guy with the horns, many of them. You know, there are all of these kind of bizarre things. When you get in, when you really start digging deep, it gets really ugly, very, very ugly. But at the same time, it's also like a spiritual battle, I would say, where you need left to understand right, you need up to understand down, and you need evil to understand good and love. And we live in this universe, whatever it is, a matrix, or I have no idea, but whatever we call reality, where we have the free will of choosing. I mean, I can turn into a serial killer here. Give me an axe, I'll chop you guys up. That's it, boom. It can be done in 10 minutes. Oh, I'm a monster. No, I'm not. I just chose to do something with an axe. Chop some wood, that's good. Chop the head of you, not good. It's like, what is in war times, killing the enemy, fantastic. If you do the exact same thing when it's peace, somebody has signed a peace treaty and you're a serial killer. There's so many bizarre things going on. So I got off track here.
Fine, I was enjoying it. I was enjoying myself.
No, so it's like when Adam and Eve was in paradise, you know, the apple was the problem. The apple, give the apple, boom, desires and greed. And this is where most of us have to deal with ourselves, because it's in us. We've all got good, bad, and desires. And it's when these things are allowed to take over, and then you combine them maybe with a broken down mindset as a sociopath ruled by psychopaths, then it can get very, very twisted. And it's especially, I would say, distorted male energy that has put us in this situation where we are now, where the male energy in so-called females and males, as I'm talking about the male energy, which can be very destructive if handled, or if suppressed, can come out in very weird ways. And it's these type of things that the power structure have used to control people in the pyramid. Many different ways of controlling people, you know. And this is also where the Freemasonic networks comes in, where great, we're among friends, and then two of your friends say, listen, Joe, do you want to come to a party? It's amazing, you know, we're this gang of guys, you know, we have amazing parties, lots of prostitutes, a bit of sniff here and snuff there, and, you know, whatever you want, coke, crack, whatever, come on.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. And in the beginning, I'm with the big boys, this is amazing, and the first party is fantastic, but what you are not aware of, and also they handpick people in positions that they can use. You know,
before we go off on that little trail, because we're gonna go down another rabbit hole where I can feel it.
Sorry,
I love it. This is your subject. I love letting you run with it. But there's kind of some stuff that I want to kind of conceptualize, because this is really there's a thing that interests me. So I think we had this conversation before, where I think it's very hard for a lot of people to go, okay, I'm just going about my life, and then you've got these satanic arseholes at the top or the bottom of the pyramid, which way you want to look at it. And it's so distant, it's so far, and I think it's so hard for a lot of people that don't follow this train of thought to go, how is this even possible? Most people are intrinsically good. Why the fuck would you do this to people? Why would you set up this structure? And something that really helped me conceptualize that was, so first and foremost, from a psychological point of view, being a let's assume the people at the top are psychopaths, which would likely be the case. So they have no empathy by their very nature. Now, there's a lot of research that shows that being a psychopath is a genetic component, and it has to then be triggered by an environmental component. So a psychopath with that predisposition will be born into an environment where something happens, usually some sort of trauma, that then triggers them into becoming a psychopath, and then they lose all empathy as well, because it's like a protection mechanism in some capacity. So if you can take that into consideration, so let's imagine a family, let's call them the Rothschilds, I don't know, the Rockefellers, whatever you want to call it, who has a psychopath at the top of it. Now, psychopaths by their very nature are usually quite successful if you use finances as a metric of success, right? They make a lot of money because they don't give a fuck about people. They do well in society in many capacities because they can pretend to give a fuck. They're very good at putting on that mask and then extracting what they want from people. So let's assume that a psychopath can very easily get to the top of a social structure. Now, the next layer of that is, let's assume he has a child. So if being a psychopath, he's more likely to pass on the genetic component of being a psychopath, right? Then, because he's a psychopath himself and he doesn't have empathy, he's likely to traumatize that kid in some capacity and then turn that kid into a psychopath. Now, the way I look at it is, if you do that over 10 generations, all of a sudden you've got 10 generations of psychopaths, and why would you be able to relate to them as somebody that has empathy? So this is kind of like the thought process that I ended up going through with this, because which took it from a satanic lunatic sat at the top that's completely unrelatable to a generation of psychopaths who I have nothing in common with. And if you have nothing in common with these people and they see you as less than them, what reason do they have not to treat you like slaves and treat you like shit? So that was kind of like my extended thought process on it.
I think that's super, super spot on.
Yeah. So like, that was a rabbit hole I went down.
No, but this is the destruction of the innocent child in these families are done very on purpose, because the way they see it, just like I said before, they need to raise someone that can take over the empire. It's like organized crime families, exactly the same thing. You can not have a wuss to take over your empire. You need to rule. They need to rule through violence and fear and keep control, massive control. So indirectly, out of consideration, because they want the best for their children to take over this empire, destroy them. So it's a very twisted, when you get into this area, it's super, very bizarre, upside down, and at the same time there's a logic to it. Because you would think that, oh my God, how can you do that to your child? But they do it out of indirectly loves, is what I've been told from people on the inside. But for me, I cannot see that as love at all.
It's funny because it's so weird, like to most of us, that it doesn't make sense. But when you that's why I went through that thought process, because then that made it make a little bit more sense to me.
Totally.
See, I'm not like to one side or the other necessarily. I'm not fully like with the conspiracies. I'm not fully against it. There's a lot of shit that I know that goes on that I don't trust. But I'm kind of apprehensive to go too far down it in terms of just kind of the level of time and investment like it would take psychologically to go down that route. I'm more interested in trying to find a solution. Obviously, what we're doing in some capacity at Platinum University is creating liberation. That's what I care about on a micro level, Where does this go? Where does this go? It says, so we've got these, let's assume we've got these structures in place. We've got these psychopaths that are running these structures and working within it. What is then the objective? What are they trying to achieve?
And 4 days later. It's super good questions. And I want to say that the reasons why they are in these power positions are because people in general are good people that are caring, they're taking care of their carrots, their children, their cats, their dogs, living a normal, caring life, not being observant of what's going on behind the scenes, where these individuals are suddenly allowed to just whoop, because they're totally ruthless, and many of them are workaholics as well, so it's non-stop, and also being pushed by their families in the background, forced to do it. So it's like us on a scooter and them in a dragster. And it's not that we have made a mistake. We have not been aware of what's going on, which is totally human and naive and lovingly in one way, but we're now facing a problem where the power structure in the world has taken a very odd balance. It's totally out of balance at the moment. So where is it leading? Or what's the objective? Was that the question?
Yeah, what's their objective?
Okay. as far as I've been able to understand, and this comes from them, they're bragging about it. It's open out there. David Rockefeller, many of these have written biographies. It goes under the name of the New World Order, or nowadays there's a new word for it, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And the objective is that they think that there's too many of us. Just like you said before, they see them as up here and us as down here. The same way most of us look, or many of us look at a cow as less worth than I am. If you're in the eye of God, in the eyes of God, I'm sure the cow is at least as much value as I have. But we see, a walking hamburger. I would say it's the same mindset that they have been brought up with, that these people, they're just useless eaters, to quote Henry Kissinger, useless eaters or cannon fodder. That's the way they see us. And so, according to their own books, their own words, there's too many of us. So they would very much like 2/3 of us to say bye-bye. What they're striving for is a one world digital currency. And the reason why they want it digital, because if it's digital, then whoever controls the system can control you. Because as long as you've got cash, if you got, let's say you go shopping and you use your card and they say, no, sorry, denied, not a problem, I've got cash in my pocket. Boom, 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 I'll go and sort it out with my bank. The day the cash is not there, suddenly you are in a problem. And also you can't trade, you can't do like get a little bit on the side when you help your neighbor chop some wood or whatever, if it's digital system. So that's why they want it digital. And I know Bitcoin is something really important for you, and I so hope that Bitcoin is the solution out of it, and it's not their creation, because nobody still seems to know where this came from. So let's hope Bitcoin is what they say.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a great topic. I'd love to get into this one for sure.
And so it's a one world army, where they want the US forces and NATO joined together with United Nations troops in one world army, there to control us, not to protect us. And this is what, when you see this is moving forward very, very fast. They want a one world religion where all the religions are destroyed. So where people of the strong faith thing, they want that totally messed up. And instead, I think what they're trying to accomplish now is that the new world religion will be based upon weather, the whole climate change that has been set up also, to push people in that direction. And then it just goes on and on. The whole thing is about a global dictatorship where they want fewer of us, so that they can control us in a better way. The mindset, if you ask me, it's absolutely bizarre. I don't get it. And I've spoken to, I interviewed a guy, his name is Chip Tatum. He's a CIA whistleblower who was working for the CIA for many, many years. He was one of the best pilots ever in the history of the CIA. And he was flying all presidents from Nixon up to George Bush Sr. And later he became the commander of the Pegasus, an ultra-secret hit team, directly under George Bush Sr., taking out 14 people in the Western world. This is not an amateur. Anyway, and he has been traveling around with these families. He's been flying around Kissinger and all of these other guys, Bushes and whatever, privately as well, and seen a lot of things that is just unbelievably dark. And so I asked him about the mindset, because I said, I don't get it. I just don't understand it. And he said, it's very simple. It's because you're not a psychopathic killer. If you were, these actions would make perfect sense. So what can I say? So I've given up on trying to understand them, because I know that I will never, because it's just so up. I would say, when you look at what they're doing and what we're doing, it's 180 degrees opposite. It's black or white. It's right or left. There's no dots meeting in the middle. It's so extreme to both ends. And once again, they worship the guy with the horns. We worship the guy with the beard. So we're sort of on different teams. And if you look at it from a spiritual level, it's all good in one way. Because if you look at it, really, the worst assholes in your life are the best teachers. The ones that really get to you, they only get to you because you're not healed in that area. So indirectly, we have to thank them for being so horrible, because they're really pushing humanity into a situation where each and everyone have to look ourselves in the mirror and saying, who are you? Who are you, and what do you stand up for? What is important in your life? What is important enough to live for, die for? What is important in your life? And who are you? Which side do you choose? So there's this filtration going on that it's almost like a birth that is taking place. And I heard this presentation the other day that I thought it was super good, because he said, it was a Swedish guy, it was a very short presentation. He was talking about 3D reality, 4D and 5D. And he said, in 3D reality, where many, many of us have been for generations, we believe what we are being told. We believe the government is good. We believe the police is there to protect us. We believe that if we are just loyal and pay our taxes and say yes sir, no sir, and are just being a good person, everything is fine. Media, everything we're being told through media is good. Every type of vaccines we're being given is there for our benefit and help. 3D. Then, just like on a radio receiver, you know, when you listen to Beethoven and you change the frequency, you go da 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 da. Then you come to a new frequency where suddenly it's a rapper, you know, like, yay, baby. Okay, so when this is what they're saying is going on now with many of us. We are going into what is called 4D. It looks the same. You look out the window, yeah, it looks the same. But suddenly there's this understanding of like, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. It looks the same, but how it's so upside down? How come that child protective services are actually seeming to kidnap people from families? How come that Catholic priests that are saying Hail Saint and this, and then they're doing awful stuff in the background? How come this guy who was like stealing billions of dollars now became elected head of NATO? How do you know all of these things where you sort of like, whoa, what the hell? And this is like where a lot of people are in this situation right now, because it's a matter of frequency. We have the time of Aquarius where the frequencies are changing. We're like being pushed into another frequency, and suddenly it's like the same way you put popcorn, you put corn in a kettle, no, in a whatever pan, and some oil, you put some heat on it, you need heat, put some heat on the butt, and boom, suddenly your mind just go boom. And once you pop, there's no way that you can get that amount of understanding back into a hard shell. It's gone. You can't go back. You can't go back into 3D, not seeing anymore. So it's like all of these people are popping, pop, 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 like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, at the moment in 4D. And this is where I think inner works becomes extremely important, because this is where we need to deal with our own crap so that we're not spreading into other, because it's coming up to the surface. Whatever is not healed will come up in 4D. It will just, in 3D, you could suppress it. You could keep it hidden with drinks and drugs and whatever. 4D, sorry, not working anymore. So it will come up, and this is not a fun thing to go through. It is also the time where you will start having serious problems with your close ones, because the ones that are still in 3D will see, what the hell happened to Joe? I mean, has he become some kind of Jehovah's Witness of what he's saying, all of these weird things, and he's claiming all of that, and he's like, what the hell? Doesn't he understand 3D is like this? But in 4D, suddenly you see it in a whole different way, and you will look at 3D as like sheep, which we so nicely call them, which I think is so not nice. It's just a different frequency. We're listening to different radio stations, and so this is where we really need to deal with. And the controllers, they have been in 4D all the time, very aware of that. They need to keep us in 3D through fear, through media that they control to a large extent, so that they can control us. Then 5D is where, you know, Buddhas, gurus, Mahatma Gandhi, these type of guys and girls have been up to, and suddenly seen like, oh my God, it's only a theater. It was only a play, a mind of, you know, shadow and light, and it was a university, a spiritual university. There is no good, there is no evil. It was all a plane for us to evolve as spiritual beings. 5D. Let's see if we get up there. But 3D and 4D are where humanity is right now. And there's another picture I just want to add, because I think that was a really good one. Another bearded guy, so-called Guru.
It's always a bearded guy.
Always bearded guys.
That's why I'm growing a beard.
And we're wise. He said in 2010, I believe, that in 2012, humanity will be separated in two major groups. See it as a train station and a train. In the year 2015, the train will have started moving out. There's a separation going out. There's a shift in consciousness. And he said at that time, people who have chosen to stay at the station, I would say indirectly 3D, can still, if they want, make a runner for it, jump the train and be on it. By the year 2020, no way. The difference is just too monumental. So now what we're seeing here is that there's a lot of heartache going on, where people can't reach each other anymore. We used to be close, and now it's like we can't even speak about important things, which is like how you see the world, pretty important. So 3D and 4D there's no communication. It's like you standing at the beach and waving away to Titanic, who's going like that. You can't communicate anymore. So and here is like where there's this like a trench war. Everybody's like, I'm right and you are wrong, because
no masks.
Yeah, mask, no mask. Because I am listening to the rapper channel and the other one are listening to Beethoven or whatever. We're listening to different channels, and we're all right. We're all correct. It's just that we're on different frequencies because of this separation. So I would strongly suggest stop fighting, stop, like accusing each other, start blessing each other, saying, listen, I see and I start to understand what's going on here. We can't really reach each other at this point. So I bless you, I set you free, I do anything I can do for you, I'm here for you. But at this point, we have to separate, because it's within spouses, within couples, within families, within close friends, where suddenly there's this separation. I, as far as I know, every single one that I heard are going through similar things at the moment. Mm-hmm. And where COVID has become like a very strong symbol of this whole separation.
I think you moved on to something pretty brilliant here, which is kind of a solution. This is kind of the role that you're filling right now. You're trying to, I see you as taking people from 3D to 4D. You're trying to bring that awareness still. You're trying to create that bridge, right, from people that are in that system to having a different understanding, to a different frequency.
I'm trying to say there's a 5D.
We're going straight from 3D to 4D, 5D now.
No, but I went from 3D to 4D in 1980. Yeah. So I've been surfing these waves for a long, long time. And what I've been trying to do is to reach people out there and say, listen, there's something going on here that you should maybe look at. 3D from 4D to 3D. Mm-hmm. And so I've been interviewed between 500 and 1,000 times on international media, and where I've been trying to reach to people, but in a way not pushing my opinions on anyone, because that never works. You have to gently knock on the door. If there's an interest, the door will open. If not, don't even go there. Because just like if you open the door, Jehovah's Witnesses are standing there. Are you gonna listen? I don't think so. If you're not interested, so you will just slam the door. And it's the same with anyone who comes with different types of information.
So let me stop you there. What is the solution? Tell me what you're trying to achieve in the world first and foremost. Obviously, definitely tell people how you're doing that as well and where they can find you. And kind of what do you think the steps are to escaping the evil side of these things?
Okay, there is no escape. You cannot escape it. That's the wrong way to, because then you're fear driven if you try to escape. So the only one you can change is yourself. I'm sorry. I know it would be so much nicer if you and ask all the women out there. I mean, he's fine. I'm just going to need to change this and this and this and this and this. Once you do that, you destroy him. But anyway, so there is no escape. The only way to get out of this or transcend it is to face it. Not nice. I wish it wasn't like that. You have to face it. It's like if you have, for instance, you come from a family with a lot of hidden secrets, dark secrets, it will tear you, it will eat you from inside, And if you don't get it out there in different ways or forms, through therapy, screaming, you name it, whatever can get it out, but get these secrets out there, you will create diseases. And in the end, this can become a deadly cancer. So what is the way out? Transparency. Transparency, truth is the way forward. But you need to become courageous. And you need to stand in your truth, whatever that truth is. And I would say the way out is to let go of, as much as you can, of judgment. I'm right, you're wrong. Everybody, I haven't met anyone who said, I'm wrong, you're right. Except after a fight, maybe. Because we all think that we're right. But there's like 5, 8, 10 billion people out there. Everybody right? I don't think so. So many of us are messed up, and we come from a messed up background where we thwarted our interpretation, and our filters are messed up. So this is why we need to deal with ourselves. Also stop pointing, become aware, something bad is going on, but this is like a flamethrower up my butt saying, heal yourself, become the best of you, so that you can live as an inspiration. You can show the way out of this mayhem, because this is not a new scenario. It's been going on. It's slaying the dragon, David and Goliath. It's been going on all the time. It's just an upgraded, updated, digitalized version. Now the super psychopath is Mr. Gates. Okay, what else is new? We'll just change another player, and so the stage is set. So how to get out? You don't have to, but you have the choice to become the best of you. Use this situation to excel, to just impress yourself. They say we're going to die. I don't know. I have no idea the day I die. Until then, I'm going to live full on. But if we're going to die, why not do it in the best possible way, so that when you go out, you're going to go, hell yeah, baby, I did it. I got romance, I got traumas, I got adventure, I got thrillers, I got death threats. My God, what a ride it's been. I did my best. In what direction? I hope that this area, this space of whatever I've been in, that I've occupied, is a little bit better when I leave than when I came. I always try to do that. Every room, every meeting, that it's a little bit better than when I entered. I don't always succeed, but that's my intention. So use this situation to look inside and see what's going on within you, because also there's the attractor factor. You're pulling things into your life, good or bad. So what is actually going on here? So if you go into fear mode and you say, oh, the monsters are here, we're going down, they're going to do all of this, you feed them, you help them. So this is, my intention is always love, compassion, peace, forgiveness, raise this, transcend this whole thing. Am I going to face absolute assassins? Yes, sir. Am I going to face monsters? Yes, sir. Am I going to be shit scared? Yes, sir. Am I going to do it anyway? Yes, sir. It's let go of the judgment. Let go of the judgment as much as you can. I've been standing face to face with people like, fuck me, but they are just on the other side of this whole thing. And when they look at me, they look at the enemy, because we come from different points. So I can't blame them, So it's a matter of, I don't know how to say, but what I would say is,
I think you've said it very, very well.
Deal with yourself. Don't look at anyone else. People are saying, but how many needs to wake up? It's not a matter of them. Forget about them. Yeah, but how can we persuade? Don't try to persuade them. Don't even try to change the mind of a single person. Purify this one. Once it's purified as much as possible, you will be used. Put yourself as service, selfless service, and you will be used by forces that are bigger. I tell you, I sometimes feel that I'm just a meat suit stumbling around down here on a checkboard and being played by bigger things, where I'm just doing my part, trying to, okay, go left, go right, do this, go that. I have no idea, because the divine synchronicity that is moving on, it's unbelievable. And I don't know, I'm sure you experience in your life as well, where the chances of you meeting whatever that person or that exactly when you needed it, when you were in line, when body and mind align, spirit enters. And suddenly these miraculous things happens that gives me extreme hope, because then I understand it's so much more than down here on a street level. I can let go of the drama here. Am I going to transcend it? Am I going to do everything I can to expose it? Yes, sir. But I'm not going to put any judgment on it. I'm just, because then I can't be efficient. And then I see it from a higher point of view. It's a matter of evolving. It's a matter of evolving. So how can I best use this situation to just deal with whatever comes up, deal with it, breathe through, go through, whatever, but also stand in your integrity and use your no that I was practicing when we met, boundaries, healthy boundaries. And then indirectly, the more healthy you become spiritually and bodily and so on, you can stand your ground. And then oppressors like this are trying to reach to you through fear. Oh no, we're gonna do this. Really? Yeah, but now there's gonna be military blocks in the streets of Java or Jakarta. Oh my God, or not. Or not. Because they use it to scare you. Once again, and fear, I love fear. I hate it actually, but I love fear, because do you know where it is? Can I have some of your fear, please?
I don't really know how to give that to you.
No, exactly. Because where is it? Is it blue? Is it round? Is it square? Where is it? Is it hiding under your chair? It's in your head. My fear is in my head, meaning it's not out there. So it's in here. That gives me a chance of doing something with it. And the mind is also so amazing, because it can only think one thought at a time, and it can only feel one feeling at a time. So you can't be super depressed and super happy at the same time. It's either or you can't think about mass murderers and kittens at the same time. But what you can do is you can start training your mind to replace the thoughts, which I do in dangerous situations. I just totally occupy my mind with things that will keep me in focus. Mm-hmm. So the other thing I love with fear is it's always focused to the future. It's always aimed at the future. You're always afraid of something in the future that has not yet happened. It's not, well, I'm afraid of my past. No, you're afraid of something being repeated in the future that you don't know about. Mm-hmm. So when you look at fear, it's a waste of time, because it has not yet happened. It's only in my mind. I don't even know if it's going to happen. And most of us are letting fear control us. Mm. And it's the only tool they have to control us is fear. So if they say burr and you say this, it's game over. And evil needs our consent. You can see it in all the old stories, the fairy tales, all of these things. Evil knocks on the door for you to open. And it's the same here. They put it out here in many different ways, their agendas. They're putting it out. They're showing what they're going to do. For us, if we don't react indirectly, we consent. So if we say, thank you, but absolutely no way am I going to accept this. You don't have to become violent. You don't have to attack anyone or throw bricks. It's just like, absolutely not. Well, then we're going to do this. Well, bring it on. Yeah, but then we're going to do this. Well, bring it on. But, and you will neutralize them. This is the magic of fearlessness. When you don't fear, they cannot control you.
I'm hearing some really powerful things, and I think it's an amazing point to end on. I'm hearing you keep your power when you refuse to be scared. You refuse to be a victim, which is something I talk endlessly about, because that's how you maintain control over your own life and you don't give it to somebody else. And I'm also hearing something beautiful, which is be the change that you want to see in the world, in the words of Gandhi, right? And that's the answer, right? Take it for yourself. Don't give anybody else your power, and be the type of person that you want to see in the world. And I think that's a really powerful way of summarizing the powerful words that you've given us today. I would really love for you to tell people where they can find you, where they can look at the immense amount of work that you've done in this space, because I think there's huge value there, and I think there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that are going to want to know a hell of a lot more on these topics.
I also want to say it's not enough to sit and say and do a little meditation or a static dance or a like on Facebook. it is a time where you need to get your thumb out and get moving, you know. But in your way, whatever that way is, because the world needs us, all of us. So use whatever you have been given, your unique combination of skills and whatever. It's the one that gives you goosebumps. That's the one you should follow. Life will say, wrong way to go. You will never make a living. It's the right way to follow. The goosebumps is your spirit chills talking through you. Go that way. But it will be a scary one. But still, that's the one to go.
Great advice.
My website is lightonconspiracies.com. lightonconspiracies.com. I'm on patreon.com/lightonconspiracies. I'm on Twitter. But I'm getting shut down everywhere. I'm heavily censored. And recently, a few years, my whole YouTube channel with I don't know how many hundreds of interviews shut down. Now my Vimeo account was shut down without any warning just a few days ago. 300 odd interviews there, boom, gone down because of hate speech. Bullying and hate speech is what I'm being labeled with. So I don't know about you, but I don't think I was that hateful here. I don't know, but it's just like a slightly little.
I actually heard love and compassion for psychopaths in some capacity. So I wouldn't say that was hate speech personally. Exactly. It's an interesting approach.
It's an interesting approach because they haven't got anything.
Very different, by the way. Most people take the very angry mask, no mask, fight the opposition. And it is a waste of time. That doesn't put the fire. It perpetuates the situation. Yeah. Your approach is something I've not actually heard from somebody that's in this field. You've taken a very neutral, objective approach. Like, this is just what it is. It may not be good. It may not be bad. That this is how we got to deal with it.
I hope it's not neutral. I hope it's a very loving approach. I hope it's a very healing approach. That is my neutral. I find like this, it will not go anywhere. My intention is healing. So I think our words are very important. You know, you spell a word, spelling. It's not by coincidence that they use this word capacity. So the words we use are very, very important.
Agreed.
So anyway, I've got, if I can brag a little bit.
Brag away. This is your space to do that.
No, so one of the things I specialized in over the years is predicting and stopping state-sponsored terrorism, alleged terror attacks. And up to date, I predicted up to 2 months ahead on international radio 61 of these alleged attacks that have happened around the world. So my last name has actually become a verb. #Dammegård or #Dammegårding is to find the hidden clues in the forensic evidence and then help to stop it. Because the thing is, once again, the law of karma, they have to show us what they're going to do in their twisted way of understanding the law of karma. If they show us in subtle ways and we do not react, then indirectly we consent, and then the bad karma comes on our shoulders. So they're showing us all the time where they're going to do. They're all the time showing us. So it's up to us to say, absolutely no way am I going to do this. And this is also what I mean with not only liking on Facebook and stuff, but just stand up and say, this is not okay. I'm not buying it anymore. I am not doing it. I am not saying, yes, sir, no, sir, bend over, pull down my pants and say, do whatever you want. It's not happening. So I would very much like to end with a prayer.
Let's do it.
I'm not religious, but I am a spiritual being. I think religion is very often used as a control mechanism, which I don't approve of. I don't like control at all. And
no shit.
Live and let live. That's the one.
I'm all yours. What's the prayer?
So the prayer goes like this. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. That's the entire universe. Every single square, millimeter, inch, whatever you want to call it, be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May everyone, and especially the ones who hurt us, be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May the light of truth overcome all darkness. So victory to that light. Yay, baby.
Thank you very much, my friend.
My absolute pleasure.
This is the Platinum Podcast.